Hey everyone, this is Eric again, and another episode of Get to Know a Hero. Today we have Mikaela Hagberg, and her story, what she does is pretty interesting. I've known her for several years from CrossFitting at King Crossfit down here in Renton, Washington. And like I said, I've always admired what she did, and now today I get to know a little bit more, and everyone else will get to know a little bit more of what she does. So again, Mikaela, just introduce yourself, life, things like that. So kids, if you have any, so tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Mikaela, and I am not married. I have my boyfriend, Cody, who he and I have been dating for 5.5 years. No children. We live in Bellingham. I'm a flight nurse for Airlift Northwest. I work out of our Arlington base, and I've been doing flight medicine for about 6 years, just over 6 years. Prior to that, I was a nurse in the ER, and before that was at EMTs in emergency services. And then a side thing that I do is I'm part of a disaster response team called TCCT West, which is part of Health and Human Services, which has been providing support for the COVID pandemic.
Nice. So you're all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier, and man, it's like I said, it's a pretty interesting thing that you do here in Washington and outside of Washington. So, not many people would do that, but one thing that I admired is, like I said, you're on a helicopter a lot,
Yes.
and tell us how that is. I mean, what inspired you to do that?
I think that I was, I'd been in the ER for about 8 years prior to getting hired here, and I was just ready for the next thing. And flight medicine had always been on my mind. I remember flying my first patient out of the ER as a brand new nurse, and at the time I was new, and you need experience to do this job. And so as time passed, I just realized that I qualified, so I applied, and I was fortunate enough to be offered the position, and that's really the short version. Yeah, that's how that worked out.
That's cool. So on one of your flights, what is the longest flight you're on?
Ooh, yeah. So the longest flight I've ever done was fixed wing. And it was when I was hired with Airlift. I started at our Juneau base, Juneau, Alaska. And we picked up a patient in, I think it was Kodiak. So we went Juneau to Kodiak, Kodiak back to Seattle, and then dropped off in Seattle and had to go back to Juneau.
And how long was that, like, from start?
I don't, more than 12 hours.
Oh, so you're on the flight just on a helicopter?
Yeah. No, that was fixed wing. So that was in the jet.
Okay.
My longest rotary flight, probably 45, 50, no more than an hour one way on rotary.
Yeah. So tell me about the most interesting, situation on a helicopter flight.
That's a hard one. I've done things like I've had to cardio over neonates, a 2-week-old on a helicopter once. Thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't had to do any intubations in the helicopter. I have had to intubate fixed wing during flight. So those are probably the more interesting, clean things that I can be talking about that are not traumatic for the viewers.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got to have a steady hand if you have to intubate, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a helicopter.
Yeah,
man. No, that's, like I said, man, it's always, just when I see those things, like even like in movies, like, man, you got to have a good, you got to have good control with how you're thinking during that time. Because there's things happening, the flight, the situation, so what do you love about what you do?
I just love, I think, the autonomy more than anything else. We have really great protocols, and we have a lot of really great support from our medical directors. And so they really trust us to, look at things with a critical eye and think clinically and make the best decision that we can for our patients at that moment. I love being in the air and just taking care of patients. Like I've talked about with my coworkers, you don't get to pick the time of day, where you go, or how sick they are or not sick they are, but taking care of patients in the air is really my favorite thing to do, despite all the challenges we have, whether that's like we do work in really small spaces. Your patient's practically sitting in your lap.
Yeah.
There's all these logistical things that are challenging, but that's what makes the job what it is. So
Yeah. So outside of this, I mean, what do you like doing outside of work?
So I do still love Olympic lifting
Yeah.
when I can get back into the gym after our shelter in place is lifted. Just traveling. Cody and I love to travel a lot, so I'm looking forward to being able to plan our next vacation to where it doesn't even matter at this point.
Exactly. Just down to McDonald's, man. That's all I want to do,
Yeah, and then
but
like paddleboarding, kayaking, things like
yeah.
that. Now that
Yeah,
summer's
because
arrived.
in Bellingham, up north, is there a lot of places like that there?
For
Or
paddleboarding,
yeah,
yeah, there's
there
like
is. Okay.
Lake Botcombe and Lake Paddon. Mm-hmm.
You're right. You're right by the Canadian border.
Oh yeah,
Pretty
and
much.
hockey games. That's
Yeah.
our other thing.
Okay. So
Driving up to Canada.
yeah, no, because I know. Yeah, for I mean, you're small and you're lifting. You Olympic lift.
Mm-hmm.
What got you into doing that? Because I know you were
Uh,
CrossFit before, and then you got into lifting.
yeah, so I originally I had hired Jaime as a coach to help me with my lifting because being tiny, like lifting weight has always been just something I struggled with and really hard for me. So I thought if I could get better at that, then I would be more efficient in CrossFit, right? Because my gymnastics and my cardio at the time was really the problem. It was getting the 95-pound bar over my head. And so about a year or so into Jaime training me, he was like, hey, did you ever consider being an Olympic lifter? Like, is that something you would consider?
No.
And I really had to mull over it for about 4 months before I agreed to do it because I knew the time commitment would not be. If you want to be okay, you can't just show up whenever you feel like it. You have to be pretty committed to it.
Yeah.
So I said, fine, like if I hate it, I can always stop.
Yeah.
So I might as well try and just see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen your improvement, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we do outside of work that kind of gives us, some sanity, you know what I mean? Because, we can work all the time, but sometimes you get burnt out, as much as we love work, we need to do something outside. And I know you said your boyfriend, Cody, is also a paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where's he
Yes.
a paramedic at?
Bellingham Fire.
Oh, Bellingham Fire. And so you guys' schedules kind of, I think you talked about like you guys kind of work at the same time. You try to plan it that way?
Yes and no. It's really hard. So his schedule is on a set rotation where mine isn't. And so, you try and work on the same days, but it doesn't always work out that way. And that's okay. And we still get to see each other. And then we allow ourselves downtime from each other also. Like if he wants to go and fish for a day and I'm working, then he just does it. And you don't feel bad about not being together,
Yeah, I got you. Now, so what is your ultimate goal, as far as what you do, future plans, what are you looking at now?
Well, right now we're saving to buy a house. That would be the pie in the sky in a year or so. Now at we'll see what the market does in a year.
Right.
I think right now just maintaining, I feel like I've had so many changes in my life that maintaining a status quo is not terrible. And I think as far as other things, getting to travel to some more of places on my bucket list. And then with the whole pandemic, my competition schedule for this year is not completely out the window, but kind of starting from scratch a little bit. So be able to pick up my training where I left off and be able to, compete in another meet again would be nice. But, those are all first world problems. So we're just taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Just like everybody else, you know what I mean? Things change. It may change today. It may change tomorrow. It change next week. So we don't know. So yeah, like you said, just take things day by day, So, with that being said, Mikaela, what is it that you would like the community to know to kind of like support you guys and what you're doing, So what is that?
I would say just really, don't let the fear of what's going on paralyze you, but let what's going on give you a healthy level of awareness. I think, fear can be used either as a tool and can be good or bad. So don't let things paralyze you to where you can't function. listen to what's being said, have a heightened sense of awareness, be methodical and thoughtful about what you're doing.
Right.
And I realized that, you know, in the state of Washington, I think whether, again, not to be political and not to say like, oh, you know, Washington started the shelter in place too late. You know, things that have been done have already been enacted. But since the shelter in place has been enacted, I think Washington's done a good job, and you can see it based on the numbers of new cases declining, death declining, especially when you look at Washington versus Chicago, Florida, New York, all these other places where things have safeguards were put in later, or you have a higher population density. So just because you're not seeing Washington's not like New York, for example, doesn't mean we still shouldn't take it seriously. So just following CDC guidelines, continuing to social distance, wash your hands. Please stop wearing gloves in public because everyone is like just cross-contaminating. So like I'll see people like put gloves on and then be at the grocery store and all they're doing is like touching everything. Like it's not protecting you from anything. Like I think what the people wearing gloves, it gives them a false sense of security that they're safe from something, but you're really not. Just wash your hands, use hand sanitizer.
It's funny that you say that because, you know, I've thought about that and I thought, you know, I was thinking the same thing, you know, so what I do now, you know, I'm always asking myself, maybe it's just better for me not to wear gloves. So at least I can, you know, sanitize my hands as much as I can. But then at the same time, I wear gloves, but I also have the wet naps and just always still kind of like I'm sanitizing with the wet naps all the time, you know? So I don't know. I mean, it seems a lot easier. This is just me, a lot easier to just not have the glove and just have a hand sanitizer with you.
Yes.
And use it as much as possible when you touch, before you touch, after you touch, things like that, you know? So,
and that goes with like the just being intentional and thoughtful, right? Like, because also there's, you know, you hear a lot about the healthcare workers about like having PPE, and there are hospitals where you have to reuse your PPE, you have to reuse your masks, and we're not, from what I know, again, I don't know everything, from what I know, we're not at that point with gloves yet, but like, let's make sure that the people who are on the front lines have the equipment they need and not unnecessarily, like, let's not use these things when they're not needed, I guess.
Got you.
As like a crutch, because I think what I see people doing is that they're putting on these gloves, they're in the grocery store, touching things, touching their face, touching everything else. And I'm like, it's not doing what you want it to. And then I bet you those people are then just going into the house, doing whatever. So you literally just brought everything from the outside into your car, into your house, where you could have just been at the store, hand sanitized, got in your car, right? So people then are probably not hand sanitizing the way they should be because they have this false sense of security because it's not on my hands, it's on my gloves.
On my glove. Yeah.
Right?
Totally. No, I totally agree, you know, and so, you know, I'm taking, like I said, I've always been kind of back and forth with that. And so what I did, like I said, is I wear my gloves, but I'm always using the wet naps or, you know, what they provide at the store, just to always wipe it. Kind of like if I didn't have gloves on, I would use the Purell or sanitizer to clean my hands. Yeah. So again, Mikaela, I appreciate you being on here. You know, again, this is just more of introducing people like yourselves as heroes, because we truly believe that you guys are, you know, you guys do things that we're not capable of. And so as we sit here, and, you know, it's not difficult to stay home, you know, but it's harder for you guys to, I mean, it's what you guys do is difficult. You know what I mean? You put yourselves as at risk every single day. So, but again, you know, every single day we're thinking and praying for, you know, the healthcare professionals like yourself, everyone else that's still working to keep us moving, you know, and so we appreciate that. So, until next time, you guys, man, just stay home, stay healthy, think about each other, like Mikaela said, and just really do things with intentions, good intentions. Okay. Until next time, God bless, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.